Thank you all for coming to our event today. My name is Denise Matthews. I'm Chapter Director of Startup Grind Gibraltar and the founder of my own startup, One Media and Events. With my own startup, I'm responsible for getting this brand out there and making the events happen. So every month we try and bring some people together for networking, thanks to the sponsors, Abacus and Gibraltar Finance, who've been supporting us. And we have tonight been able to pin down two excellent guests. So they've been instrumental in the progression of blockchain business in Gibraltar, and I think this is a hot topic. So I'm just going to tell you a little bit about Malcolm Palle. Is chairman and co-founder of Coinsilium Group, which is the NEX Exchange listed blockchain investor, advisor and venture builder. He is a multidisciplined entrepreneur and early technology adopter with 25 years startup experience and background in the mobile communication and travel industries. And Paul Astengo, a lot of people who are here already know. He is Gibraltarian and returned to Gibraltar in 2000 after 20 years overseas. He created and grew relationship with Barclays Wealth, joining Gibraltar Finance in February 2013. He's been tasked with growing the private client proposition, which includes tax resident schemes, trust and company management, plus banking business areas. Additionally, he's been leading on the new technology electronic money opportunities as co-chair of the DLT working group set up by Albert Isala, Minister for Commerce. So, we're going to start with a few questions. And by the way, if any of you have questions, just put your hand up and we'll take questions in between the interview. So, Malcolm, I have a bit of a description that you've put down in various places I've researched. So you describe yourself as an enthusiastic, disruptive guerrilla marketer, which I love, a barbarian investor, and you're also the co-founder of Coinsilium, miningmaven.com, UK Investor Forum. So tell us about how you became a multiple entrepreneur, how you took on these roles, and how you've managed to combine them.
Wow. Should I turn this on?
Yes, you should. Be a good start.
Is that better?
Yes.
Yeah, okay. I was going to say it's all a bit of a blur, and that probably says more about my age than anything else, but I've always been the kind of person who has looked for alternatives when the obvious is right in front of them. So I kind of always wanted to play to my strengths. And when you see a very competitive market and people rushing around trying to get the edge over their competitors, I sort of shy away and I think there must be an easy way of doing this. So if that sort of naturally gets you gravitating to new opportunities, to things that people aren't looking at, things that people aren't sort of considering at that time. So when all my friends were becoming estate agents, no disrespect to any estate agents in the room, but that was all an established model at the time, and it was, this is the way you're going to make money. You're going to, get your commission, get in that competitive environment. So that didn't sort of appeal to me. So the short answer is, with Mining Maven, which was a company I founded at the depths of the aftermath of the global financial crisis, was purely on an opportunity. I saw that a load of small cap stocks were bombed out, particularly gold mining and exploration companies, and I saw the value in those companies, but no one was speaking about them. So with a partner of mine who's sort of a business partner in many areas of my professional life, we founded Mining Maven to actually talk about the opportunities there, where a small mining company was, the day before the global financial crisis, was worth 100 million. 1 week after it was worth 10 million. And what's gone wrong? We analysed them. We saw they had money in the bank. They had more gold and cash than their actual market cap represented. So we went out and bought, and then we looked around and said, well, no one else is buying. So let's talk about where we see the value. So that was easy for me, because there wasn't anyone else doing that.
Sure.
So when I got involved in blockchain, it was easy because there was no one else doing it. So I saw, I mean, it was early days, it was 2012, 13. I saw how Bitcoin was taken off with enthusiasts, and I thought, who's running an incubator? So I looked around, couldn't see anyone doing anything like that. There were loads of people with big ideas, and I saw one of the guys who introduced me to the sector said, well, this guy Eddie Travier is in Hong Kong, he's running an incubator fund. So great, got hold of him, had a chat with him after 3 months of meetings and Skype meetings. We just basically clicked and said, come over to London, I'll get you some money. I didn't know if I would or wouldn't at that stage, but that was it, and the rest is where we are. So,
well, not history yet. No.
Not yet. No, it's only just.
But it will be. So basically, that was my second question concerning the industry that you're now in. What's your impression, and what has driven you to it? Which you've kind of answered already, but maybe expand on it a little bit more.
Yeah. Again, it was about what can I do where I've got a distinct advantage of having drilled down, found something that the mainstream isn't interested in yet or doesn't see, and let's see, what you can do with it. Once I was comfortable that this industry's got legs, and I think I was there about 2014, yeah. I knew that this wasn't going away. So that was really what drove me to it, was the fact that you can. I don't mind being called an idiot, a fool. If I'm convinced that it's right, I'll keep going, and the more people that call me an idiot and a fool, the better, because it just really spurs me on. So that was it.
Well, it's the confidence in a speculative world, which is good to know more in. So I'm going to come to Paul now. Paul, your career has seen you undertake a variety of leadership roles in domestic and international markets. You've dealt managing clients in the executive and entrepreneurial high net worth markets. So how has this helped in your role as senior executive with the Gibraltar government?
Don't I get a guerrilla banker or anything like that? Nothing?
A guerrilla senior executive.
He got all the sexy stuff.
A barbarian finance person.
So how does it help me in what I do now in Gibraltar Finance? And I do a number of things in Gibraltar Finance, but I think fundamentally that one of my core beliefs is that you try and create a team, or you form part of a team, and the ability of that team to create and achieve something is much better than you can individually. So if we looked at the blockchain space, the DLT space particularly, it's something I know nothing about. I'm quite happy to admit that, but certainly we've got to where we have got by virtue of the fact that we've been unafraid to go and get that knowledge and go and get that expertise where we've needed it in order to grow where we are. So I think bringing that from my banking world, understanding the importance of a team, creating that team, participating in that team in order to achieve what you want to achieve. So I think that's a fundamental thing about it.
One of the really curious things while I've been doing these interviews is that a lot of people who used to be in the banking industry have now converted to this new sort of crypto. So what is it in the banking industry, as you have understood it, that attracts people to transition into this newer, much more speculative one?
I think most bankers got kicked out. I mean, 2008 happened, and there was more bankers than banks and banking business. No, seriously, I think, how would I best describe it? I think that you need to understand a little bit about the mathematics of what's going on. You need to understand a little bit about how you assess a business. So part of that is, even whether it's at an early startup stage or when it's more developed, is understanding the numbers and cash flow and what capital means and what cash you require. All that sort of thing is all part of making an assessment on what is a very complex and difficult area. Even though I joke about it, the level of expertise is variable. There's some very, very intelligent people that are doing the technology and stuff like that. way beyond what the majority of us can ever hope to achieve. But they need some support as well. They're not necessarily a genius at absolutely everything. So, you know, if you look at at the end of the day, whether you're in it to make money, whether you're in it to be successful at something, but not particularly concerned about how much money you make, you know, you have to understand the numbers. And sure as eggs is eggs, at some point in that journey that you're on, people will talk to you about numbers. So whether it's a bank talking to you about how much you have or don't have in the bank account, or whatever it is. So I think that sort of ground in which historically banks have done very well, very good training schemes, etc., and a general view of a lot of the areas of business, I think that's why we're in demand.
So would you say that even though Gibraltar has started attracting a lot of the blockchain startups from around the world to come to Gibraltar and set up here, this is just the beginning for Gibraltar as a startup hub?
We haven't started yet, really.
Okay.
There's the surface, let's scratch it. I think that what we have done that is good is that we've gone to speak to people who know what they're talking about and learn the lessons from them. And what we have done is put in place a framework in which there is confidence in those people to say, well, if I land in Gibraltar with this idea, at whatever stage it is, I know the sort of welcome that I'm going to get, and I know the parameters in which I can work. And I think that's an important start point for anyone. Like I say, we know that there's numerous license applications in with the regulator who've been fantastic in supporting all of this as well. That will end up with different sized businesses, some startups to more mature businesses being here. We hope the herd instinct takes over. We certainly see it. And if we get our side of the bargain right, I think then that the other side will flow undoubtedly.
Okay. So back to Malcolm. No fighting. The reason I wanted to put you two together is obviously you have the local setup kind of experience. So what opportunities have you found locally so far?
In Gibraltar?
Yes.
I kind of think that what opportunities? Okay, so everything centres around, for us, the regulatory framework and the conduciveness of this environment, the willingness to embrace this unknown, this whole sector, knowing that a lot of the outcome is unknown, but with the confidence that you can actually deal with whatever is going to get thrown at you. So we our company, Coinsilium, is effectively based in London. Eddie Travior, our CEO, spends a lot of time outside of London. His family and home is China and Hong Kong. So I never imagined that I would be moving out of London. I imagined I was going to be the guy in London. Now we've got to find an office manager. But the thing about Gibraltar for us is that we have had so many challenges trying to run this business from the UK. We're not necessarily relocating the whole company here, but we are looking at this jurisdiction because of the certainty that we hope it is going to provide, and we expect it to, because the initial stage of the conversations we've had have always been around, what do you need? You need regulation. If that's going to happen, then you need to have some kind of certainty of what that regulation is going to bring. You need to have banking relationships, and you need to be treated like a proper business, a normal business, and you need to know what the tax structure is. And once you've got that kind of certainty, you can then spend time developing your business and growing it. We've found banking challenges in the UK which have distracted us from actually running our business, because we've had to go and find new banks, which is just not productive. So that, if you, in a nutshell, it's the regulatory certainty and the conducive environment this jurisdiction presents to us.
So tell us a little bit more about Coinsilium and what Coinsilium is, the company itself.
Yeah. Coinsilium was the first blockchain-focused company to IPO on a recognised investment exchange. We joined an exchange in the UK called the NEX Exchange, which was previously ISDX because it came out of ICAP, and before that it was Plus Market. So it's gone through a few evolutions. It's always been the second tier under AIM. It was felt that it was the right market for us because although the liquidity is not huge on it, it does give price discovery. And the background was, I think I mentioned before how we founded it, but so we got the IPO away end of December 2015. Too early, but it's better to be too early than too late. And what we're doing now is effectively falls into three strands. We are investors in this space, we are advisors, and we're also venture builders. So from our investment side of things, which was how we initially saw ourselves, we just imagined that we were going to be helping startups with a bit of seed funding, and then, you know, if they need some nurturing along the way, we can do that because we're going to strap on an accelerator. And that side of the business has done pretty well. We've had one exit of a company at 360% what we paid, a very early stage, a company called Satoshi Pay, 18 months after our first investment. We're also investors in two quite well-known blockchain companies called Factum, which has been raising money at increasingly high valuations, and RSK, which anyone who knows the sector, Rootstock as they're originally called, we were the first investors in there. So we've got quite good credentials. I have to say, all of that's down to Eddie. I won't take any credit for that because he's the go-to guy as far as that side of things is concerned. But since tokens started in 2016, 17 was when it all took off. 2017 we decided to promote ourselves as advisors in the sense that Eddie had been approached by lots of startups asking him to be an advisor, and then we structured ourselves that way. So we provide strategic advice, we also plug them into investors and token purchasers, and with our investment in Startup Token, which we completed last year, they're an accelerator. So we have a whole package. And finally, the venture building side is our own in-house projects. So we wanted to be seen on the market as being more than just an investment company, and we're working on one particular venture at the moment called TerraStream, which we've registered in Gibraltar, which is looking to provide a alternative finance mechanism using blockchain for natural resource exploration and mining companies, where they can effectively tokenize the gold they have in the ground or the precious metals and forward sell a contract to investors who want to take a bit of a speculative risk on whether the gold's going to come out, but nonetheless buy it at a discount to the spot price.
So, does anybody have any questions at this point? No? Okay. Can you tell us a little bit about what blockchain means to you? And the second part is, do you think that having a subsidiary in Gibraltar will attract some of the other blockchain startups to look at Gibraltar to be their place to home their businesses?
Okay, so what blockchain means to me is where the guerrilla and barbarian side of things comes in, because I love the fact that as sort of that guerrilla, I didn't really expand on this before, but the guerrilla approach is really to use whatever you've got, you as a small company, as an individual, what's the hardest thing that you have to do is to get financial resources behind any kind of campaign, whereas large companies and entities will always be able to bully their way in, maybe with less focus on how much these efforts are going to cost them. So what blockchain does is it turns everything on its head. It provides a mechanism for people, individuals, talented people, to use what they know to their advantage in terms of getting making solutions, putting propositions out there, and where the most important factor is not financial resources. The most important factor is your skill and your understanding of where you're going, because you're using the power of the network effect that blockchain can create to actually get your traction.
Okay.
So that was the first question. The second one?
Yeah.
The second one would be, do you think setting up TerraStream in Gibraltar will attract?
I think that Gibraltar's doing a fantastic job in any event to attract companies here. And I also think it's important, as we were discussing earlier, that you, as a jurisdiction, you attract the right kind of companies, because any early stage, any industry that's in its nascent stages will inevitably attract people who are not necessarily approaching for the right reasons. And Gibraltar's record with gaming has been such that it's set the standard for itself and also for everyone looking at this sector and looking at this jurisdiction, to ensure that they know that it's not going to be the kind of safe haven which means that it's a free-for-all. There are going to be the right kind of controls, regulation, which will ensure not just consumer protection, but reputational, they won't put the reputation at risk. Yeah. So in answer to that, what I think we're doing is, I'm not sure how much our venture here will attract other people, other companies here, but it can't do any harm. Yeah. But I do think that Gibraltar's making tremendous efforts to actually fly their own flag, and if we can be part of that, and just by example, be here, and if people feel that the example of TerraStream, our subsidiary, being here, Coinsilium, we're going to be more visible here as well going forward in other areas, then if that brings in interest from other people, then that's a win-win. Okay, so back to Paul on that note, because Gibraltar Finance markets Gibraltar as a financial services centre. In 2015, the financial services sector contributed approximately 23% of Gibraltar's GDP. So it's a really important cornerstone of the economy. Take us through how this has evolved and how the DLT regulation came about.
Okay.
So it's a long one.
That's a long one. How much time do we have today? I suppose if I give just a little bit of a potted history, so the political decision taken just before the millennium was that as part of the consequences of the evolution of Gibraltar from basically a military base to the need to become a commercial centre, that more focus was going to be placed on financial services. So I suppose that started with the recruitment of James Tippin, who still remains the Finance Centre Director. So then started off looking at expanding and diversifying the financial services offering. So, for example, insurance, which Gibraltar is very strong at internationally. So that has come a long way since then. So, depends on how many and who you listen to, but 1 in 5 UK motor vehicles are insured through a Gibraltar insurance company and stuff like that. The drawback is you get that meerkat that comes on annoying you every day, but still behind that there's a lot of very good business, very good quality business in Gibraltar. So that was part of that, and then as we were gathering more pace, it was decided that that needed to be bolstered by more people. So an element of specialisation was brought in on that as well, so somebody who particularly looked at the funds, somebody who particularly looked at insurance, and myself who looked at private clients. Going back to 2013, so we came on board and have been able to dedicate more resources to looking at developing the wider picture for each of those different areas. I suppose the blockchain or cryptocurrency as it first started was at a conference nearly 4 years ago in London, where I was supporting the e-money community, Pay Expo, which is a very large London-based exhibition for that sort of purpose. And what I found that the 2 days, there were two very busy days that I was there, I was bombarded with people talking to me about Bitcoin. And as now, I did not know a thing about Bitcoin then. So I thought I'd Google it, because that's what everybody does, because that's where you get the right answer, isn't it? And all I could see was people who were hacking, people who were hanging themselves in New Zealand, and just terrible bad news. So I thought, well, I don't know what conference I've come to, but if this is what these people want to talk about, I'll make sure I won't come again. But it coincided with meeting Sean Jones, who, if we jump forward 4 years, is now working with the FSC and has been instrumental in bringing the DLT regime into place. And she said, well, don't look at this, read this, read that. So she guided me in the right way. I came back and after some time and spoke to Albert Eastman and said, Albert, everybody's talking about this. Bad experience right at the beginning, but I found that there's something that may be of value for us, something worth looking at. And he said, well, coincidentally, Joe Garcia at Islas has also been talking to me about this area, so why don't you two get together with David Barodi, who had not long left the Financial Services Commission, and take a look at it, because David won't agree to anything, because everything's a scam. So we had to try and overcome that particular challenge, which I have to say, to David's full credit, we did quite readily and quite quickly. And we started on that particular journey that ended up in the creation of the DLT regulations, and shortly to come the token regulations, and after that some work on funds, and no doubt meeting all the challenges that will come along with all the change and stuff that's happening in this particular space.
So I think also interesting in the event series is that we've had the transition of talking to people who are in the e-money and payments. So Brent, who has been, Brent Almeida, who's been a guest, Felix from Sapo. I think the talk was at the time when Sis Casares was looking at Gibraltar, and that also was a big input there. So what do you think are the benefits for entrepreneurs and companies who want to do business here from the Gibraltar Finance perspective?
Okay. If we look at it generally, there's a whole different range of benefits that apply in some sectors and others perhaps less so. And I think it really comes down to personal choice. What are you looking for in the jurisdiction that you want to base yourself in? And I would add to that these days, a company is not based in one jurisdiction necessarily only. And we see that, for example, with the gaming companies that have different parts of their network in different countries that specialize in different areas. So you can't look at it as one, is Gibraltar the perfect place for every company? I would say, of course it is. But the reality isn't that isn't the case. But I think that you have to do your due diligence on the place. You have to find out what's the political situation like. Is there a huge amount of long-term stability? Yes, there is. What about the tax situation? Is it a punitive tax place, or is it somewhere that actually encourages businesses to reinvest their profits into their own business? I think it does that as well. From the perspective of transparency and compliance with the greater global community on all different matters, what's our record on that? I think that, with 126 different relationships with on tax and information exchange, etc., the OECD giving us a clean bill of health, Eurofin giving us a clean bill of health, I think we can pass that, despite what sometimes is speculated in the press. So there's a whole different number of reasons why people would choose to look at setting their business or part of their business in Gibraltar. I think mostly positive. For those that are UK, which has been a very, very important market for us for many, many years, I think the fact that there's common law, something that they're used to seeing, that their professional advisors in the UK are already used to seeing and working with as well, I think that helps as well. But underpinning it all, we're really nice people.
And the weather's good.
The weather's
sometimes.
Good. The weather's too hot for me, but the weather's good. And I think also Gibraltar, as part of that process of change that it embarked on in the very early 80s, has a need to diversify, to strengthen what it does, to be good at what it does, to market itself as well as it can, to make sure that we survive, because we don't produce
the
coal
industry
or,
is limited, yeah.
that's right, we don't make nice cars or anything like that, well, not yet anyway. So we have to think on our feet. We have to be very positive in what we can do. We generally tend to look for niches rather than a full blast approach, and find things that we're good at and then export that information.
Great. So globally, GFSC and Gibraltar Finance have pioneered in making Gibraltar the first DLT regulators, and currently there's also ICOs. So update us,
Token
please.
regulations.
Yes.
White paper, I think maybe people will know this already. White paper is on the website, so you can see the direction of travel and what the principles are behind what we're doing. A month or a week is a long time in politics. In DLT, that's an absolute lifetime. So undoubtedly what will come out at the end in detail, which we're hoping will be May, June, okay? will be slightly different to what you've already seen, but that's just reacting as we need to do to what we're seeing in the market and what people that we speak to say, well, I think you could do this better, you should maybe do this in a different way. So it's not set in stone, although the direction of travel and the principles are established in the document. You'll get the same sort of feel that you will get and you have seen with the DLT regulation. So not a very codified approach to, you will do this, you won't do that. A bit more warm and embracing, at the same time giving a very clear direction on what your responsibilities are and what you get in return.
So do you think the business scene has evolved in Gibraltar since you got here?
Since I got here personally, I get, yes, for sure.
So it hasn't been that long?
Absolutely, for sure. Not because of me, but certainly I think there's been a huge amount of change across all the different areas in Gibraltar. In the 18 years since I came back, I mean, the buses are fantastic now compared to what they used to be. But you can just see the amount of growth that there is, the economic prosperity that's here. The investment, which I particularly like, the investment in infrastructure. So whether it's new schools, new hospital, new university, all these things are the building blocks for what will make Gibraltar better in the future. And I think they're very important and very wisely done. Whoever's done them, I don't say that from a political perspective, because they've been done at different times in the scenario. And I think that only helps to make our community stronger. Makes our community more attractive as well for people that want to come and put their faith in us and set their businesses up here and bring their families, as Malcolm is doing and committing to the place in the way that they're doing.
So back to Malcolm, maybe a little bit of advice. How would you advise new entrepreneurs to begin their journey into this industry?
Okay, so the most, up till now, it's been about people taking the initiative and putting the hours of research and the enthusiasm into actually what you're doing, to learning what this is all about. Mm-hmm. So we're at the stage now where the opportunity itself is becoming apparent to more people. They might not understand quite how it works, but they see there's something there. And I see this right the way across the board in the UK from the people I know. They know there's something there. They also, I would suggest, and I tell a lot of people this actually, and also like my nephew is in recruitment, and he's now going up this steep learning curve because he's not a particularly technical guy, but he knows that if he's dealing with programmers in a certain sector and a certain space, and I'm not hugely technical myself, he now knows that there's a lot of money there's a lot of opportunities in finding talented programmers, talented people who understand blockchain. So he's focusing himself there. What I would say he was initially asking me if I can find him a job in another space or whatever, this must be a great space, what can I do? I said, what do you know how to do? And that's really the key to it. If this technology, if it goes the way it looks like it's going to go, isn't it going to touch every sector, every area of our lives and our working lives and our personal lives? And if you're looking for an opportunity, then use your skills. You look at what you know, what you can do, and then see how this technology can be applied to that space. Because although, in the early stage, getting back to what I said at first, was that it required a lot of enthusiasm and a lot of time and energy to understand how it works. Now we're at the stage where the individual skills in areas unrelated are going to be coming to the fore. So any entrepreneur, if you know an industry well enough, see how blockchain is going to apply to that, and that is key. And learn that. Go find out what the implications are. Then see the opportunities that are around from your own unique vantage point.
Learning, that's a good one.
Yeah.
We're going to expand on that one later on in a couple of months, right?
Well, yeah, hopefully.
Yes.
Yeah.
So, just to kind of wrap it up, I think it's always important to ask where is the room for improvement in the local scene? And I think this is a question for both of you to answer, because, well, your perspective, obviously different to Paul's.
I think try and get the properties a little bit cheaper. Or not moving up as fast.
I think that everyone's going to agree on that one.
No. It's hard to know where to begin. I mean, I don't want to sound like I'm being completely, what's the word, just sycophantic or whatever, but it's really, what I've found here to date has been so much of a sort of a breath of fresh air compared to the way we've had to operate. It's hard to actually sort of pinpoint something that is particularly an issue. So I'm going to have to give that a little bit more consideration than I have done. I think that professionalism is fine. Maybe scaling. Maybe that's an area where we think that, you know, look, this is a sector that you're embracing, you're going out to get. We're going to give you the benefit of the doubt because you've got the first mover advantage. But nonetheless, you know, there will come a time when execution is becoming more critical, and the more people that are, you know, plugging in with us to help us do what we are sort of putting our money where our mouths are, the better. Now, that's not to say that, you know, every time I come here, if I want to meet with people from your office and from regulators, you know, the door's always open. There's not an issue there. So, you know, it's not like an area that's critical, but I believe that as things go forward and this tidal wave, this tsunami comes and hits, you want to be geared up for that because, and likewise, you know, to be doing it in your terms, not in a way just as that you're going to be everything to everyone, because you're not. So I think scaling is probably something that I can envisage. It's not necessarily a huge problem now, but I think unless it's addressed at this stage,
could become.
Yeah.
Okay. So what about you, Paul? What do you see?
Other than perfect.
No.
Far from it. I think that I'm picking up on what Malcolm said because it's a very, very good point. I think that the private sector and public sector have to work together.
Mm-hmm.
If we're on this big push to get business in that is used to tech, that is used to speed, that is used to delivery coming promptly, we have to make sure that we do the same thing as well. So whether you're applying for a license for something that you need, not necessarily through the Financial Services Commission, but through whatever, or you're renewing your ID card, or whatever it is that you need to do as part of your day-to-day life, we have to make sure that all of those things come up to scratch as well, so that we meet the expectations. We have to put, as the government has been doing, in fact, with the e-government project, put in more stuff that's electronically available so you can download a form rather than having to walk into an office to pick one up and things like that. So there is work, pretty significant work on that happening as we speak. And I think the fact that there is that work happening is because we recognise that we need to be a lot better at all of that. And I suppose the best solution would be that before too long we announce that the government in some way or some parts was going to be on the blockchain too. So we lead by example in terms of what we're asking people to do, and also hopefully make the experience overall a lot better.
Okay, so does anybody have any questions? We've been so thorough today, that's the thing. So I'm just going to say my quick thank yous, because there are some people I need to mention. Without them, what I do and what I've been doing for the past year isn't possible. So my co-director Margaret, who's been with me from day one, helping out. My volunteers Alspeta and Sada, who are here today as well. Josie, who's an amazing photographer. Carl, who's doing the sound tonight. And Anton, who's been filming my events for the past few months. And obviously to the sponsors and the attendees. Thank you so much for coming.